Michael, are you ready to go?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Good deal. So as we did with the earlier session, please feel free to use the chat. We're going to have a question and answer session. We don't need to wait until the end. Feel free to interject questions and I will pop in and we'll run any of your questions by Michael as he's going through the presentation, so we don't have to wait until the very end. We're going to be in here approximately 30 minutes and I will let everyone know when we get down to the last couple of minutes so that you can kind of be ready to go back to the main session. And the system will take you back to the main session automatically. So with that, Michael, you've got the floor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kelly. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm Michael Canales, and I'm the Community Programs Director. I've been with USDA for going on 32 years right now. I've been a program director for since about 2007. So I've got a lot of things I've learned along the way, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some of your questions and assist you with anything you may need. Just to give you a brief overview again of what community programs is, we're divided up into two sections. One is water environmental, and the other is community facilities. Under the water environmental programs, we have three main funding mechanisms to provide the necessary funds for wastewater infrastructure, water infrastructure, solid waste systems like landfills and recycling centers, and stormwater drainage. Those are four of the main types of projects that we fund through this program. As I mentioned in the presentation, cities and towns of less than 10,000 in population are eligible for this type of funding. Also, nonprofit organizations, water supply corporations, such as water supply corporations or sewer service corporations. In some cases, we have to look at, for instance, if an HOA or that similar type of entity is applying for funding. Typically, individual-owned utilities are not eligible for this project, for these types of programs. And the third type of eligible applicant is going to be your Native American tribes, and not necessarily thinking about a map here. I don't know that any of the coverage areas of the North Texas COG would include any of the three federally recognized Indian tribes. I don't believe it does. So, municipalities, cities and towns, river authorities, water authorities, SUDs, MUDs, irrigation districts, even in sometimes that they provide service, are eligible, as well as nonprofit water supply corporations. Again, water, sewer, landfills, and stormwater drainage fits under those programs there. Loans, grants, and guarantees. Under the community facilities programs, as I mentioned in the presentation, anything that could be deemed as a project that provides for the orderly development of a community can be potentially funded or could be an eligible project. Public health, medical clinics, hospitals, emergency room equipment, ambulances, things like that. Public safety, such as police cars, police stations, fire stations, any type of equipment that goes with those particular types of deals, police cars, fire trucks, sheriff's vehicles, first responder communications type equipment, all that goes under public safety. Public service, we're looking at city halls, sidewalks, community centers, county courthouses, courthouse annexes, things like that. And then education, we'll look at school buses, computer equipment, school buildings if necessary, if they qualify, then we'll look at those types of deals under there: public health, public service, public safety, and education. Now, those are the broad topics, and under each of those, there's a gamut, basically of a laundry list of items that could potentially be funded, as long as it serves for the orderly development of the community. And if it's for a nonprofit trying to do something for the community, it is something that potentially the municipality could actually do itself. It's just not either in their plan of action to do, or something that they can qualify for. And then when we talk about nonprofit organizations, again, as I mentioned earlier, we have to have essential ties with the local rural community. A lot of organizations come into us wanting to apply for funds, and you've got a husband and wife and a daughter. You got your president, your vice president, and your secretary treasurer, and they control everything. They run the nonprofit themselves with no members, and it's just them wanting to do something. Not knocking it. I mean, if it's some sort of philanthropic work or some sort of assistance to the most needy individuals within the community, that's all good and fine. But what we typically look at under essential community facilities is that connection to the local rural community. The easiest way to get there is to have members of this nonprofit organization. You've got members from across the community that are assisting with the directorship and the path of where this organization is wanting to go. You know, maybe you have a preacher, you have a city official, you have a doctor, you have an attorney, you have somebody who's well known within the community, who's got experience in construction and development and financial backgrounds and things like that as your members of your nonprofit. Well, those members that are from the local rural community should have or are you know, by their association and what they do within the community themselves, have that tie to the local rural community. And I didn't mention this before, but the population limit for the community facilities programs is 20,000. 10,000 for water programs, 20,000 for community facilities. And all our numbers that we're basing our eligibility on are still taken from the 2010 census data. We have not updated our programs yet based on the 2020 census. There's some reporting that the Census Bureau does that does not quite fit with what the agency guidelines are. And at our national office level, they are tasked with coming up with that particular set of data figures that is needed. So they've not accomplished that yet. So we're still using 2010 for median household income and the population when we determine eligibility for that. That's really a plus and it's really a minus. The minus is mostly for areas that were on that 20,000 population threshold prior to the 2010 census. You know, they may or may not be eligible now. The rumor is that the 2010, when the 2020 census data comes to fruition for us under the guidelines that we'll use, most likely urban areas that were once below 20, maybe 22, 23, and they will not have the ability to grandfather those in based on the time frame that it's taken to develop those new numbers. So those are the big programs: water and wastewater infrastructure and community facilities. So does anybody have any questions at this point or want to discuss anything in particular?
Hey, Michael, this is Kelly. We do have a few questions in the chat,
Yes,
so I'm just going to go through them in order. And again, if anything else comes to mind for you all participating in this, please feel free to enter that in the chat. So starting out with, if I want to learn more about the B&I loan program, is this the right session?
No, it is not. You would need to get into the business and cooperative and energy program discussion with Mr. Torres.
Okay, and for that person who asked that question, these sessions are being recorded. So when we're done with today's webinar, we will send all of the recordings out to all the participants. The next question, can this help with grants to install new sidewalks for small cities with 3,500 people?
Okay, so that would fall under the public service component of the community facilities program. That would be under the same umbrella as courthouses, streets, and community center type deals under that particular category. So sidewalks and sidewalk improvements for a community could fit under there. It would generally be eligible under the CF program. Now, as far as the grant component, what we do on those to determine the grant eligibility is to take the population of that rural community, the 3,500 or less population one, or the 3,500 population community, Anytown, USA, Texas. All right, so we take that Anytown, USA population based on the 2010 census data, and then we also take the 2010 median household income of the service area. Now, when it's a community or a city with corporate boundaries or a defined jurisdiction, then we take that information on the census data for the median household income as its service area. In other situations where you've got like say for instance, a county, and the county is going to do some sort of improvements, then typically we'll take the whole county as the service area and use that median household income to determine the grant eligibility. Now, the smaller communities with the lower income are generally going to qualify for more grant, the 55 or 75% grant for that project. The difference of those, again, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is either going to come from a contribution or some other organization, or a small loan from the agency itself to make up that difference. But sidewalks are a good deal to fit under the CF program. We typically don't like to put permanent structures with under a project for the CF grants, just because of the long-term reporting that is put on the entity applying for the funds. There is a compliance review and a site inspection that has to be done with all types of our funding. Under the community facilities program, it's the same thing, even with the grant. So if I have a fire truck that I put a grant in, then we will have to do a compliance review and a inspection of that particular fire truck, for instance, or a city utility truck, every 3 years, or for the useful life of that facility. So sidewalk is going to be around forever and a day. So if you're looking for $10,000 worth of CF grant money for a sidewalk, then you're looking at a long-term type, every year provide financials, and every third or fourth year have a site inspection and a compliance review done. Not that it can't be done, it's just a longer-term commitment on a more permanent type of structure, sidewalks or a building, versus telecommunications equipment or radio communication for police that goes out of obsolete within 5 or 7 years. So yeah, it can be done. It's just a little bit more reporting on the community regularly for the compliance issues.
Okay. And the next question would be for a similar, the small city, 3,500 people. What about relocation of water lines?
Okay, relocation of water lines could go under both programs, the Water Environmental Program or the CF. CF is primarily for the community itself, and the water's the service. So to qualify under the CF program, the community facilities, for a grant, again, we would still take the population, the MHI into consideration there. But for that particular program, it's got to be 10,000 or less in population. So I can't have a community want to apply for a CF grant for water line replacement or repairs if their population is 15,000, even though under that program the maximum is 20, because it's a utility. So the utility automatically is going to put it back into the water programs, which is going to be 10. This 3,500 population is not a question; it should be fine, but it can be done. The issues with that, and not necessarily a negative, there'll be an environmental report, there'll be an engineering report, and the grants under the water program are either at a 45% or a 75% eligibility based on the median household income of the whole service area. So line replacement can work. If it's a city, then the city will be applying. If it's a city engineer on staff, then they can use a city engineer. Or a third-party engineer that they contract with. Again, there'll be an environmental review having to be done, and a full financial review to determine whether or not the city has resources to pay for part of the improvements on their own, or and qualify for a grant. If the city has sufficient revenues or unrestricted assets in its financials, in its budget, then we typically look at some of those unrestricted cash balances to be used towards the project and partner those with either a smaller loan and a grant for the sake of having some skin in the game by the community, not just a grant or a combination loan grant.
Very good. Thank you. We do have good questions coming in. If for some reason we don't get to them before our 30-minute session expires, we will have these questions saved for the USDA staff, and they will respond to them, and we'll get those answers out to you via email. Next question. Our population is under 2,000. We're presently using an outside water provider for up to 20% of our water usage. Is there a grant or loan opportunity to purchase easement and drill new wells for this in this program?
Yes, there is. Basically, anything that's required for the installation or the development of a water system or a wastewater system is potentially an eligible cost. You can purchase a site to drill a well. You can purchase a site to build a building, to build a standpipe elevated storage, as well as any type of easement or cost associated with obtaining the legal access to utilize that piece of property for whatever you want to do.
Okay. The next question, if a town is under 10,000 but are in the DFW urbanized area, are they still eligible?
All right, so it just depends on what the DFW urbanized area definition is. Typically, when we look at funding projects that are really close to urbanized areas or within an ETJ, then it's going to be probably most likely another level of review and bureaucracy, because that holder of the ETJ is responsible for providing service within that area. I mean, they're fixing to annex it eventually, you know, so they're looking at what they're needing to do to upgrade within that area that they're looking at. There's extra reviews that are required with that, but if it is still a smaller community within the ETJ that it's independent and it's on its own, as long as it's under 10,000 in population, then potentially a loan or a grant could be made to upgrade that system or install a new system there.
Okay, this is kind of an overarching question. Are these grants, do they cover equipment? I guess in general, equipment?
Sure, and the easy answer is under the community facilities, yes. Now, of course, the population thresholds and median household income thresholds and all of that to determine the grant are in play, but equipment, you know, let's just say, you know, even water equipment, even a generator under the CF program, or firefighting equipment, communications equipment, a tower, those things would fit under the community facilities grant program there. Under the water program, typically equipment, standalone equipment type purchases would not be grant eligible. Those would be loan projects, just because, you know, they're a short-term kind of thing, and if there's no construction involved with that equipment purchase, then it would throw it automatically into a loan.
Okay. Is funding available for recreational centers? And if so, what would be the threshold on that?
All right, so you're going to have your wordsmither when you talk about recreational centers. If we're looking at a recreational center that could be a community center, or a gym is not out of the question. Softball fields are not technically out of the question. Parks are not out of the question. We cannot fund anything that's inherently recreational. If we're looking at a park and a walking path, we can use that as health and wellness. Health and wellness component falls under public health, public safety, public service, the public health aspect of that. So if you got your wordsmith, your grant writer, or your person that's putting your application together, and we're styling it, or it's being styled as to benefit the public health, to install a walking path around the park, or to install or to build a community center that may have a basketball court or a swimming pool, then, you know, those are kind of a little bit more difficult to get past, but it can be done.
Okay.
Just all a softball field or a recreational complex where you've got soccer, softball field, baseball fields, and a football field, and that won't work.
Next question. We need a new sewer interceptor line as well as new water tower, and to upsize our intake meter from a neighboring city that we purchase water from. Are these projects eligible? And if so, what are the requirements in addition to meeting population requirements?
All right, population requirements is one. You already got that. If we're looking at a grant, there's also meeting household income requirements, but that's further down the road. All those items that were mentioned are eligible projects. The requirements, we have a new, if you're interested in doing that, the first thing to do is reach out to the let me know who you are, or local, or reach out to your local area office. Most likely it's going to be McKinney or Decatur, or maybe even Hillsborough. I don't know how far east you go, but they can get the ball rolling with you guys on the application process. There's going to be a financial review, there'll be a engineering review, and there'll be an environmental review, all going in tandem. So when all those three items are complete, then we have a potential project to fund. There's no loan limit on these types of projects. The limit is based on, we can go as high as we need to go based on the adequate repaying ability of the entity itself for a loan or a loan grant combination. And only difference is the level of review on the size of project. Anything over 5 million goes to our national office. Anything over 15 million goes to our senior loan committee up in DC, where the administrator and a couple of higher ups just under the Secretary of Agriculture sit in and discuss the project and move forward through their review system there.
Okay, and I know you mentioned Decatur. We've got a couple questions for cities located in Wise County. Should they go through their Decatur office to get more information on these resources?
They're the first point of contact, as Ms. Salerno showed the map up at the very beginning. We're at the state office. We all those applications that are received or worked out in the local office come up here for final underwriting, tweaking, and approval. So whoever's in Decatur, whoever's in McKinney, whoever's in El Paso, whoever's down in Edinburgh, they're the first points of contact. They start with the application process on the community facility loans. We have an automated online application now for our water programs called RD Apply. The reason for the automated program now is because, we had a reputation across the country of being a little bit slow on the applications itself. Now with this online system, the onus is on the entity to fill in the blanks, submit all the information, and upload it all on their timeline versus expecting the agency to do the review. So once we get a complete application for RD Apply through RD Apply for utility programs or wastewater and water programs, then the ball is back on our court that it's complete and it's ready to move forward. But the first point of contact is typically your area office.
And are those contacts listed on your website?
Yes, they are. They are listed there. There's also even the USDA the main USDA website where it's got contact us, and you go down to service center level and you pick your county, and it'll give you all the three sister agencies that were alluded to by Ms. Salerno, NRCS, FSA, and rural development, and where those offices are located.
Okay, here's one. We're getting ready to build a new public safety building, and we just sold bonds for the construction. Is there availability to get additional funding to subsidize the bond funds?
Depends what you mean subsidize the bond fund. So you issued bonds for $15,000 or $15 million for a new public safety or public emergency operations center or your building. If the cost associated with that for the final development of that project is the $15 million, then you have essentially proven to us that you have the ability to fund the project on your own with the issuance of bonds. If there, for instance, is a cost overrun and that $15 million is going to be $17 million, then we can supplement an additional $2 million worth of either loan or grant funding to complete the project. But essentially having the capability to issue bonds on your own without going through a lender to deal with any of that, on the guarantee side, for instance, or us purchase the bonds directly coming through us with your inability to get funding on your own, then you've proven to us by that you can get the funding elsewhere. We can subsidize it if the cost exceeds the allocated amount per the bond.
Okay, I have one from a city that has a current population of about 3,000. The 2020 census had them at 1,800. So can these funds be used for community facilities that include community gardening, equestrian, agri-life education, demonstration and teaching kitchens, those types of things?
All right, so the community garden and building a facility, for instance, either with AgriLife or a community type center that's got these educational components to it. The teaching gardens, the community gardens where they've got a community kitchen, all those are eligible. Now the equestrian, it's going to depend on what that's going to be wanting to do, and you're looking at wordsmithing it again. Is that going to be run by the county? Is it going to be run by a nonprofit? What's the purpose of the equestrian aspect of it? Is it for physical therapy or is it just recreational? Physical therapy goes under health. Then we look at a review of the entity that's going to be running that, if it's a nonprofit, to see that it meets the eligibility guidelines. If it's a for-profit, or if it's just, they have horses and they go ride and people just rent them for the day and they go, that's going to be deemed recreational. It's all in the wording.
Real quick, do you know offhand the contact for the Decatur office?
Mr. Lambright, he mentioned that he was the area director moving into the single family housing program directorship position. That's his area right now. Decatur is. So if you want to reach out to him, he's got the offices, the office in Decatur and then the office in Hillsborough. I'm not quite sure who he's got running the community programs out of Decatur. But I would reach out to him first, reach out to me, and we can figure it out and move it there. I know our Hillsborough office was actually doing some work with the offices within that one area office jurisdiction. So it may even be the Hillsborough person. That's why I'd say reach out to Mr. Lambright or myself, and we can be a little bit more specific on who we need to filter the application to, or at least the contact info for.
Okay, and we can certainly help with those contact emails for Alan, who was on one of the other sessions this morning, Alan Lambright, and with
Right.
Michael. The next question, just to confirm, criteria is based off of the 2010 census data. Is there a time frame when you will base things off of the 2020 census data?
Right, so the 2010 is most likely going to be through the end of fiscal year 23. We just started our fiscal year October 1. So we have been told that the 2010 census data will at least run through September 30th of 2023. So we've got a just about a full year to still utilize that information. And then if it's an in process, if the application has been received and there's a question there, they may have the ability to grandfather in, as long as it's a complete application that hasn't been funded in that interim period.
Here's an interesting one. We have a small population of 822 people. They're on a high ridge area exposed to lightning strikes. Are there funding opportunities to pay for lightning protection measures?
Lightning protection measures for a public building, or not individual housings, but say a fire station or a county building. Yes, those would fit under that. It would be similar to storm sirens. Up in the Panhandle, we had a lot of applicants apply for, counties apply for storm sirens because of tornadoes. That would be, in my opinion, the same kind of deal. It's protecting the public building.
Okay, well, we did great on time. We have less than 2 minutes left in this session. Does anyone have any other questions? Again, feel free to contact us if you think of something after we end the webinar today, and we'll be happy to put you in touch with these USDA staff who've done such a great job in sharing their grant and loan programs today. We will automatically go back to the main session when we're done. So if you, hopefully no one has any trouble with that. We've practiced this multiple times. So please join us for the wrap up. We will have contact information and websites and other resources for you. So, but thank you, Michael. Great job.
Yes,
great programs.
Just want to let the crowd know real quickly that in fiscal year 22, we had a wonderful year as far as funding. Through Water Environmental and CF, we funded nearly $195 million worth of water and wastewater projects, as well as essential community facilities this past fiscal year. Not being political or talking anything like that, we haven't had that much funding since the Recovery Act go out the door. So yeah, even with COVID and everybody staying home, we managed to do good in getting some of these dollars out the door. Now the next step is getting each of those lines dug, wells dug, and sinks running, and buildings built to provide the services that those monies were intended for. So we look forward. Actually, we've gained a little bit of momentum forward to fiscal year 23. Nearing at least, hopefully, half of that, if not more than $100 million worth in obligations this coming year. So whatever we can do to facilitate that with you guys out there, we're happy to do it. So I know 2 minutes is probably going pretty quick. So before anything else, I want to thank you for your time, the opportunities, and the questions. Reach out to us. We're here to do whatever we can to help you out. Thank you all.
Thank you all. And you should have a message on your screen that allows you to leave the breakout room and go back to the main session.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.